A common question I get is, how do I start building wealth if I'm starting later? Now, when I talk about later, I'm not talking about 5 years prior to retirement. Then it's a bit more of a challenge. But oftentimes people are asking about when they hit about the age of 40. And the reason 40 comes into play is something that I've actually seen in my own personal life. And that's where expenses change a bit, income changes a bit. There's a lot going on when it comes to that age. You've oftentimes got a lot more experience in the workplace, which gives you the opportunity to make a bit more money. Though at the same time, maybe you have a house now, and so you have something there that you're shelling out a lot more money on. Though there's another benefit sometimes that comes into play, and this depends on the person, though something I'm seeing with a lot of clients, and that is once they hit about that age, oftentimes they've finished up all the daycare expenses. The kids are now in public school, which frees up sometimes, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month. So a significant amount of money right there that they're then able to start saving. And so I really want to walk through just some things that you should be looking for if this is you and you're really wanting to figure out, how do I need to start getting ahead if I'm around the age of 40? If you are in the 30s or you're in the 50s, this could also pertain to you, so pay attention. All right, the first thing you could do is go all Dave Ramsey. Now, I am telling you that this isn't really my style. And the reason for that is I've worked with enough people and seen enough of things on how people work and the way they work and what drives them. And oftentimes they go the Dave Ramsey style for a bit and they get completely burnt out, and then they actually go the opposite way. There's a psychological switch there that some people just go all in and it works for them, but not everybody. A lot of people get discouraged and then they go back to their old ways. And so you really have to be careful with this method directly. Instead, what you could be is a bit more Dave Ramsey-ish, which is something that I like to think about. And that's more of just, cutting back on some expenses, starting to really review the budget, which is what anybody would tell you, and working towards your goals. Now, the first thing that you could do as far as that goal goes, though, is something along the lines of your occupation. What are you doing right this second? Where are you working, and what does that look like? Possibly you're in a job that it just makes sense for you to stay in. Let's say that you work a government job, and if you work there for 30 years, you get a nice pension and you can walk on out the door. But if that's not you, maybe you're working in a job and you have some benefits, but not a lot of benefits. What I like to talk to people about is making sure that you're looking at your salary, because your salary needs to cover your general needs, but also making sure that you're looking at benefits. If you have a lot of history of employment, possibly you have the opportunity with, I had mentioned before, the experience, you could go out in the workplace now and get a job and find some good benefits. Now, when I talk about good benefits, what does that mean? Well, I'm talking about possibly company stock. If you work for a company and they're granting you stock, or they have an ESOP plan or something where they're gifting you stock. 401ks, having a match in that 401k. Now, when I talk about a match, that's what you've got to really start looking at. If you're making $100,000 a year and you get a 2% match on your 401k, and you're like, well, you know what? I'm only going to put in $2,000. That's only $4,000 being contributed to retirement. That's not a great way to catch up for retirement savings in your 40s if you're only putting away about $4,000 a year, if you're wanting to live a nice lifestyle as you would if you were making $100,000 while working. So you've got to make sure that you're putting away enough money to keep up with the way you're wanting to live in retirement years. And so if you really look at this, though, I'm going to give you this number here. And that's, let's just say that you're starting at zero with your 401k. You make $100,000 a year, but you get a 6% match. Some people that get the 6% match, I love that. That is a great match from an employer. So a 6% match is one that you could get. You put in $6,000. They put in $6,000. Now you're putting $12,000 toward your retirement. Let's say you're age 40 and you plan to retire at age 65, and you get a hypothetical 7% return on your investments. Well, at age 65, you will retire just with the retirement dollars there, if you didn't do anything else, $812,117.64. That is a lot of dough that is sitting there for just starting in your 40s with investing. Now, like I'd mentioned before, if you put away a little bit less, not going to be as much for you, but if you have the opportunity to put away a little bit more, maybe a Roth IRA or something, that could increase the wealth even more. Now, when it comes to the employer benefits, also start considering, do they have other options as well, such as an HSA? If they have an HSA, that's kind of the second best to the Roth. Now, I'm not telling you don't take the match. Definitely take the employer match. It's always free money. But when it comes to an HSA, this allows you the opportunity to put pre-tax dollars away, save on taxes today. Then you can use those later on for healthcare expenses, which you're guaranteed that you're going to have throughout life. And you can use those dollars towards that tax-free. So there's some great strategies with the HSAs and working off of those. You can also reimburse yourself. We've done a lot of videos talking about how you can reimburse yourself by paying out of pocket today and then letting the HSA grow, and then later on coming out and saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to reimburse what I used for medical expenses prior. So that's one opportunity that you can look at. Another one that you want to think through is allowing compound growth to work for you. Now, when I say that, think about working an additional 5 years. Now, I know nobody wants to work extra time, or even if you just say, you know what, I'm going to live frugal for the first 5 years of retirement, I'm going to let my dollars grow for me. If you have $1,000 and you get a 7% return on your dollars, well, guess what? You're getting $70, and it doesn't really move the needle much, and you're not feeling great about it. But if you've really worked hard and you start at 40 and you're working till 65 and you've put away a lot of money and now you have $1 million. Let's say you have $1 million and you're like, you know what? I'm going to try to really make sure that I'm allowing this money to grow a little bit farther for me. If that's the case that you're at, look at this calculation right here. $1 million, if you let it sit for 5 years, you don't add any more dollars in. And if you were able to get that, again, hypothetical 7% return, we're talking $1,402,551.73 is what you would have after 5 years if the returns were that 7% annually. So it is a massive wealth builder sometimes to let compound interest work for you and possibly consider just working a couple extra years. So that's something to consider there. Another thing to think about when you're wanting to build wealth is the idea of really taking where you are right this second and downsizing or making a lifestyle adjustment so that you don't have excess expenses. Kind of goes back to the Dave Ramsey-ish talk as that I mentioned earlier in the video. But the idea here is really looking at your lifestyle and making sure that you're not just dumping money at a lot of fancy things, Range Rovers or other vehicles that you're not really needing if you are wanting to build wealth. If you're wanting to look like you're wealthy, that's the way to do it. But if you're actually wanting to build the wealth, oftentimes you've got to get rid of that lifestyle and people are going to perceive you as broke, but you're going to have a lot more money in the bank as you continue to build that wealth. That's the way that works. And the final one is, once you get to the Social Security ages, what you're going to want to look at doing is possibly delaying Social Security. Now, again, this isn't for everybody, and that's one that you've got to really factor in your financial plan to find out what works for you. But delaying Social Security just from age 62 to 67 means that you would possibly get roughly about a 30% increase from taking it at 67 years old instead of taking it at 62. So that's something that you're going to want to factor into the plan to make sure that you're building that wealth, because Social Security, you're paying into that right this second. And long-term, that's going to be a steady paycheck for you in the retirement years. So even if you didn't save as much as you wanted and you have those dollars that are dependable dollars coming in, that's going to allow you to live a bit better of a lifestyle in the retirement years.